So let's talk about the specifics of that moment with Jonathan Gilliam. Mr. Gilliam, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, my friend.
Great to talk to you. Take a moment here and tell us your credibility on this issue, sir.
Well, I'll tell you something. When you look at the totality, you know, when I'm on here, a lot of times I talk about the totality of the circumstances. When you look at all the things that went wrong that day, starting before that day with the threat assessment, you know, why weren't those buildings frozen in a zone, which they should normally be? They would freeze those zones into an area where those buildings that are the highest accessible point for somebody to get onto, to have a clear shot at the president, not even 130, 140 yards away. Why wasn't that included? If that alone had been done, where it was included, frozen, and law enforcement officers were right there, the shooting wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't talk about anything else. But because of that, the shooting was allowed to occur, and then everything that you saw, that Secret Service is typically, that's what they do. That's what they exist for. Every bit of it was a disaster. The only thing that was done right that day was Trump, the way he reacted when he went straight down to the ground. That was it.
And I want to talk about every detail of that, because it was every Secret Service person I've talked to has done this, and this is what I'm grateful you're here. But you were being humble. Let me ask my question more clearly. You're a Navy SEAL, former Navy SEAL, former FBI agent, and now what's the business you're in now when it comes to security?
Well, United States Continued Service, that's my company. It's a boutique crisis management and consulting company, but we do crisis management, and that includes protection and security, but we do it the way it should be done. We don't just throw some Joe Smo out there. We go and we do threat assessments of everywhere we go. We come up with plans of action before we have to take action, and we work closely with the client to train them so that they can understand if we need them to go this way, that they're going to go that way. If we need to make a suggestion that they change this or tweak that about their tour, then they will do that. Hopefully, that's where the wrestling comes and goes. But hopefully, they'll take on the policies that we try to create for them, so that we can move in a fluid fashion in the possibility of something occurs, so we can get them to safety and then evacuated.
Okay, tell us about how these advanced team people work when they go to an event. Like Trump's team is not just like, hey, we're going to go to Butler, Pennsylvania tomorrow.
Right.
And they set up a stage real quick. How much time is given? And then if you're on that advanced team that goes ahead, whether it's Secret Service or whatever level of law enforcement, what are the things that you, in your expert mind, are looking at and thinking and aware of?
Well, first of all, you're building a relationship with, or you have a relationship, or you're building a relationship with the local law enforcement. And so they take part in this hand in hand, especially the convoys and stuff. They're all involved. And you are going to that location to look at it and see what needs to be facilitated so the attacker doesn't attack. And the way you start with that is you start looking at everything from the attacker's point of view. That's what a threat assessment is. And you come in with a detailed plan and an understanding of why you're freezing that area, of what the danger is from that area, because you're looking from the attacker's point of view. And so your goal is to freeze an area big enough so that a standoff weapon, such as a rifle, cannot be used. And then you develop rings of security from there all the way to the stage. Have, whether it be plainclothes officers that are in close into the crowd in case somebody has a knife, a little bit further back in case they have a pistol or they have some type of biological agent, and then you go back from there and you develop your overall ring of security where you have people coming into the frozen zone. So you got to make that frozen zone for those people to get in there, and that is where the building should be included. And then after that occurs, and you have to have your plan, you sit here and you think, okay, if something occurs and we have to get this individual off the stage, how do we get them off the stage as fast as possible and get the vehicle that we're going to put them in out of this area and to a trauma center? And when you look now at that process, that overall process, it was completely and utterly destroyed because it was not done correctly. Even the vehicle that was leaving that they had him in took forever to get out of there because it didn't have a clear path.
Oh, amazing. Okay, I want to get to the getting him off the stage part too, because, and I hate talking about that part because, like, their ineptness led to the amazing moment of Trump putting his fist in the air, right? So it's like a tricky, but like the Secret Service obviously needed to get him out of there. But even before the whole thing, I'm just so fascinated by how could this building not have been secured? So if you, Jonathan Gilliam, former Navy SEAL, FBI, etc., you go to this field. If I was at this field and I looked around, I'd be like, well, there's a building right over there. Mm-hmm. Clearly, you're going to put an agent on the roof,
right,
of that building, right? Isn't that like basic 101? So the only thing I can think is that maybe, I'm just asking, did the Secret Service say, all right, hey, we need a state officer, we need a state police guy securing that building, so you guys take care of that, and we'll focus over it. Could it have been that? Is that where the ball was dropped? Maybe.
It could have been. I mean, you could have put the counter snipers on that building and had them trained towards the location where Trump was, or through the crowd. They pick their nest where they put these counter snipers. They pick that, and they usually try to look at the area of where it's like putting up a camera. When you in your house, what do you want to look at? Do you want to look at where the door where they may come through, or do you want it outside where you can see them approaching? So you got to think your way through these types of things. For some reason, they came up with the thought process of put the counter snipers behind Trump and then point towards that area, when the area behind Trump was probably the most secure area, law enforcement everywhere. I would have most likely had my counter snipers somewhere in a standoff distance where they could see who was coming around those buildings and have law enforcement either over there or on top there.
Yes. How far of a frozen zone are you making?
I mean, it could be upwards of a 300 to 400 yard circle, depending on the facility. If you incorporate hotels that may be there where they could take a shot, it may take it out further. If it's an arena, you're inside the arena, then you're going to have a light freeze outside in the parking lot area. You're definitely going to have an evacuation route, but your frozen zone comes down into the perimeter of the building and inside the building itself, so that could be smaller. But in an open field like that, I would think a minimum of 300 yards, because 300 yards is really the effective range of most rifles. You start moving in from there, and it's a no-brainer. 130 yards, it really should be a no-brainer. Trump should have been shot, not just grazed. And thank goodness he was a terrible shot, because and thank goodness Trump turned his head.
Yes, that's the key. How do you think the shooter, would-be assassin, knew that this building wasn't secured? How would you ever, even if I wanted to do this, I'd be like, well, I can't get on that building. That's way too close.
Well, that's a huge question right there. And I even wonder, there was a water tower there. Maybe he had thought about going up there. There were other buildings that were further away. Possibly he might have tried to go there. But I don't know, maybe he just was driving around and he just saw that he could drive right up there. But their frozen zone was not there. There were people hanging out back there, and he had time enough to climb up on that building. There's now video showing him climbing up on the building and looking at the people that are over there, and nobody's stopping him. They're yelling at police, but there's nobody going over there to yank him off that building.
We got AP's reporting now that a police officer also climbed up on the roof and encountered the would-be assassin, who then pointed his gun at the police officer, and the police officer retreated. That's what the AP is reporting right now, which is
why wouldn't the police officer shoot him? This is like these are the questions I'm talking about. Where the world has changed. You know, the world has changed, and there was the Slovakian president. There was attempted to kill him in May. You've had how many multiples of presidential candidates or just people running for different offices in Mexico that have been assassinated or attempted assassinating over the past 6 months. It's a growing trend. It's a growing trend in the world that this is occurring. Why isn't law enforcement quickly evolving with this? Because what we saw, and what's interesting about what we saw, you know, Mike, is that we saw the whole thing.